Well, I'm getting started a little bit later than I originally wanted to, but hello, everybody. It's the Dark Conservatarian, and I am here just to get an updated on some articles that I have been saving up. Just wanted to dwindle down some of my backlog on articles and, all that jazz. And I'll probably have another one on either Sunday or Monday. Don't know exactly when. Either one of those afternoons, providing that there is not like some last minute family plans that happen in regards to Memorial Day. And also, it's soon Memorial Day, and I would like to wish you all a happy Memorial Day weekend once it comes around. But for right now, yes, what I have lined up in no particular order and no guarantee that I'll get to all of these because, like I said, I'm just going to do them until I feel like I'm done for the night. But for right now, just to get this little video that I think was shared in my server, or maybe it was someone else's server that I'm in. I can't remember. Talking about Elon Musk moving his plant out of California, and lockdowns could kill millions. About a Dallas salon owner being arrested for reopening, her salon down in Texas, and how the Great Lockdown could be the worst global recession ever since the Great Depression. Talking about the second C-word virus name, or excuse me, the second C-word virus wave was what I meant to say. And this article right here kind of talking about some of the little information that we had talked about in the past, which we'll get into a little bit later. About how people are like falsely labeling certain deaths as coronavirus cause. Oh, I just said the C word. Too late. Oops. And Cuomo's take on saying it's shocking most new coronavirus hospitalizations are people who had been staying home. And of course, it's CNBC, so it's mainstream news. But hey, we'll take it with a grain of salt, at least, I guess, once we get around to it, if we get around to it. But I got like 7 of them lined up here. And so far, let's just go and do this. Myth Cuttlefish says Elon has taken the red pill. Indeed. Actually, there was some people who unironically said that down in the description box down below of this video. And whatever I read today will be linked down in the description box below. Just FYI, once this live stream is done. But other than that, let's get to this. And hello, everyone else in the chat. Today will be linked down in the description box. So let's get on to this.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted Saturday.
Tell me if you people cannot hear the audio. But anyway, starting over.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted Saturday that the company will move its headquarters and future programs to Texas or Nevada from California immediately. Musk said, quote, "Frankly, this is the final straw. Tesla will now move its headquarters and future programs to Texas, Nevada immediately. If we even retain Fremont manufacturing activity at all, it will be dependent on how Tesla is treated in the future." Alameda County's health department had said the electric car maker must not reopen its Fremont factory until the end of May, with only essential businesses allowed to reopen. Musk on Thursday told it.
And I would kind of think that car manufacturing is a little bit essential. I mean, I know that electric cars, which is the prime bread and butter of what Tesla and Elon Musk is trying to manufacture, but still, I mean, if I was to argue more on the green side when it comes to the climate change argument, let's say, excuse me, one of the arguments that I heard yesterday from somebody in my personal life is that coronavirus has allegedly been the greatest thing to affect, dwindle down climate change, let's put it that way, ever in human history, mostly because it has scared the crap out of people for, to not go around in their cars and whatnot. So while everybody is staying, out of the social circle and not driving around their cars and whatnot, shouldn't Tesla be continuing to manufacture electric cars or lower emission cars in general, so as that when society does come back up and running, it won't be as bad as it was before? just to mostly argue devil's advocate, I'm not exactly a pessimist when it comes to climate change myself, but still, there is a bit of a point to be made that car manufacturing, be it conventional cars or green cars, would be kind of essential. Anyway, and by the way, this is from Reuters, everybody. So, and as Reuters is generally accepted as a fairly unbiased source, but let's go.
Employees that limited production would restart at Fremont Friday afternoon as state orders eased. Musk, in another tweet, said Tesla would file a lawsuit against Alameda County immediately and said, quote, "The unelected and ignorant interim health officer of Alameda is acting contrary to the governor, the president, our constitutional freedoms, and just plain common sense." In March, Musk sparred with California officials over whether his company had to halt production in Fremont, home to Tesla's only U.S. vehicle factory. A county official on Friday said that its health department has had many discussions with Tesla and recommended it wait at least another week to monitor infection rates and discuss safe ways to resume production.
There's no out.
All right. Oh. Anyway, that was about it. It was a pretty short video, but it's still like is a bit of a funny or at least slightly amusing story, and it shows as evidence that you're just going to like further hurt the economy if you keep on keeping the lockdown going or slowing down the reopening, like keep on slowing down more and more the reopening of the economy anyways, within a state by state basis at least. I mean, it's not like the entire nation is within the same rate reopening, but it seems like California is kind of taking their sweet time with it, and they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot by forcing Elon Musk's hand and wanting to move out. But anyway, so next article here, this is from telegraph.co.uk. Unicef warns lockdown could kill more than COVID-19 as model predicts 1.2 million child deaths. Indiscriminate lockdowns are an ineffective way to control COVID and could contribute to a 45% rise in child mortality. The risk of children dying from malaria, pneumonia, or diarrhea in developing countries is spiraling due to the pandemic and far outweighs any threat presented by the coronavirus, UNICEF has warned. In an exclusive interview, Dr. Stefan Peterson, chief of health at UNICEF, cautioned that the blanket lockdowns imposed in many low and middle income are not an effective way to control COVID-19 and could have deadly repercussions. Indiscriminate lockdown measures do not have an optimal effect on the virus, he told the Telegraph. If you're asking families to stay at home in one room in a slum without food or water, that won't limit virus transmission. Okay. So let me look at the chat here just very quickly. You can blame communist China. Yep. Exactly, Metal Doomer. LOL, in a radio talk show voice, welcome to the Dark Conservatarian Show. Today's subject, Elon Musk and the Rona stuff. Good cue, Zach, says Myth Cuttlefish. What do you mean by that, Myth Cuttlefish? Good cue, Zach? You're talking about Zach as in a good question from Zachary Colley in the chat. My bad. Don't most electric chargers rely on fossil fuels? Yeah, considering the fact that electricity is like becoming more and more reliant on natural gas as opposed to coal or anything else, then yeah, it is technically natural gas, but it's still like reliant on conventional energy nonetheless, or conventional resources, energy resources. So in an indirect way, yeah, pretty much. So either way, it's going to take up those natural resources, that conventional energy in one way or another. Especially since nuclear power is not so widely accepted, and wind and solar energy, they're not exactly efficient. Anyway, I'm concerned that lockdown measures have been copied between countries for lack of knowing what to do, rarely with any contextualization for the local situation, he said. One size fits no one. The objective is to slow the virus, not to lock down people. We need to lift our eyes and look at the total picture of public health, according to a stark report published in Lancet Global Health Journal on Wednesday. According to a stark report published in Lancet Global Health Journal on Wednesday, almost 1.2 million children could die in the next 6 months due to the disruption to health services and food supplies caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The modeling by researchers at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and Unicef found that child mortality rates could rise by as much as 45% due to coronavirus-related disruptions, while maternal deaths could increase by almost 39%. Yeah, this kind of goes in contrast with something that I had heard a few weeks back. I cannot remember exactly where, talking about of how that more children have been malnourished, to put it lightly, because of the forceful lockdowns. Dr. Peterson said those figures were in part a reflection of stringent restrictions in much of the world that prevent people leaving their homes without documentation, preventing them from accessing essential healthcare services. In some countries, the public are also avoiding hospitals and health centers for fear of picking up COVID-19, while services have also been diverted to focus on the pandemic. Vaccination campaigns against diseases including measles have also been disrupted. At least 117 million children worldwide are likely to miss out on routine immunizations this year. United Nations needs to be disbanded, says Cent 1000. Yep, I agree. Dr. Peterson warned that these trends have resulted in a reduction in the effective utilization of services, a shift which, in some places, could be more dangerous than the virus itself, and lockdowns have a heavy economic toll, which could trigger a rise in poverty and malnutrition. The research looks at the consequences of disruption in 118 low and and I'm going to add on that. If you're going to order a lockdown, like generally speaking, I am against lockdowns, especially with looking at this virus anyways. You better make sure that it have the real objectively convincing case that it is at least a real high yielding killer, or a high rate killer, let's say, a high case rate killer. And as we're seeing with the coronavirus, like I've said in past streams and in the recent response video to Foamy the Squirrel, it has a very low fatality rate. I'm not so sure. I'm not convinced at all that it is worthy of a mass lockdown like we just did in the past couple of months. And in a trade for that, we ended up crippling ourselves in the economic factor of things. Malnourished children are a product of greedy parents who consumed as usual despite the disrupted supply chain. Okay, Mythcallfish. I don't know of how many parents would be like consuming more than their fair share of food within a given household, but okay. State of emergencies for each state is what each state law says about the lockdown. Okay. It says Cent 1000, by the way. The research looks at the consequences of disruption in 118 low and middle income countries based on 3 scenarios. Even in the most optimistic case, where access to health services dropped by 15% and child wasting rose by 10%, an additional 253,500 children and 12,200 mothers died. But a worst-case scenario where services are reduced by 45% and the proportion of children who are wasting grows by 50% could result in 1.16 million additional child fatalities and 57,000 maternal deaths in just 6 months. The modeling projected that India would see both the largest number of additional deaths in children under 5 and I'm stumbling over my words. Starting over. The modeling projected that India would see both the largest number of additional deaths in children under 5 and maternal mortality, followed by Nigeria, Pakistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, and Indonesia are also likely to be hit hard. So let's make no mistake, this is mostly in third world countries, it seems. Hello, Red Feather in the chat. Nice to have you back tuning into the show. It's been a while. Such a situation has some precedent. Research has shown that in 2014, during the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, more people died from indirect effects than the disease itself. But the scale of the pandemic means the consequences will be far greater. Pretty much. Ever since we started counting child deaths and maternal mortality, those numbers have been going down and down and down, said Dr. Peterson. And actually, these times are unprecedented because we're very likely to be looking at a scenario where figures are going up. That's not from COVID. COVID is not a children's disease. Yes, there are rare instances, and we see them publicized across the media, but pneumonia, diarrhea, measles, death in childbirth, these are the reasons we will see deaths rise, he said. These threats far outweigh any threat presented by the coronavirus in low and middle income countries. The disease itself, let's say, the effect from the coronavirus or what people do because of the coronavirus is what people are more concerned about, aka the lockdown. Dr. Peterson urged countries not to impose draconian lockdowns, but to focus on identifying hotspots so that regional restrictions less damaging for public health can be introduced. Yeah, you could have at least done that. I mean, it's not to say that, I mean, there are some parts here in the US, let's say, for example, that have been less stringent on how much they enforce the lockdown as compared to California and New York City. But still, there was still some heavy restrictions put on with the rest of the country. New York is done like my brownies, says Myth Cuttlefish. Well, happy baking. Yep, been a while. How have you been, Darkcon, says Red Feather. It could be better, but I'm all right now that I'm actually doing this live stream, getting this live stream out of the way. Where was I at? Dr. Peterson urged countries. Oh, never mind. I've already read that paragraph. He said he was concerned that the current battle against COVID-19 was turning into a child's rights crisis and robbing a generation of their health, education, and economic prospects. Launching the Save Generation COVID campaign, UNICEF's largest appeal in its 73-year history, Satya Deshmukh, if that's how you pronounce that, executive director of UNICEF UK, added this pandemic is having far-reaching consequences for all of us, but it is undoubtedly the biggest and most urgent global crisis children have focused since World War II, or children have faced, since World War II. We cannot allow almost a decade of progress on ending preventable child deaths to become undone on our watch. End of article. And that is unfortunate. Let this go in the books for negative impacts from doing the lockdown. I'm tired of the fear mongering over COVID, says Red Feather. Indeed. Child's rights, my ass. They're trying to shut down homeschooling, says Myth Cuttlefish. Some people are. As concerning as it is that Harvard keeps on bringing up the case against homeschooling, supposedly, it hasn't gathered, mass support. It hasn't gained anything large enough to get a bill through that is going to force parents to start sending their kids to public school or anything like that. It's worthy keeping an eye out, but still, let's keep things in perspective. This is from TexasTribune.org. How a Dallas salon owner changed Texas's reopening debate. Now, I'm sure that some of you have heard of this story right here. It was a rather authoritarian and almost tyrannical little story right here. It's anecdotal, but it's still worthy of pointing out. And I just realized that maybe I should have pre-read this article because it is a long one. But still, I think there might be a little bit more to this article than just the fact that a salon owner was arrested but then released from jail because of the fact that she tried to reopen her salon. But I do not know hardly anything about this story, so that's why that I searched an article talking about it. But let's go. How a Dallas salon owner changed Texas's reopening debate. After Shelley Luther was jailed for opening her salon in blatant defiance of emergency orders, top Texas Republicans in all three branches of government scrambled to ensure her release. Three branches. Are you talking about the three branches of Texas's government, the state government, or are you talking about like on the federal level? I don't know. Don't mess with Texas, says Myth Cuttlefish. That's right. Sorry about that, folks. By April 27th, when Governor Greg Abbott announced that hair salons and barbershops would have to remain shuttered, Shelley Luther's salon a la mode had long since opened for business. Her stylists trimmed and chatted as Abbott said that restaurants could partially reopen, but not salons, where he said the risk of spreading COVID-19 was higher because of close quarters. As for enforcement, he reminded the news cameras violators faced a $1,000 fine and up to 180 days in jail. You know, I hear vaguely some positive things about Governor Greg Abbott, but this is like striking as a kind of a bit of a downside of the governor. Luther knew she was operating in blatant defiance of emergency orders from the state and county. She had already torn up a cease and desist letter from local authorities, winning loud cheers on stage at an open Texas rally in Frisco. But when the governor's team reached out to her that week, it was not to demand that she close or to threaten the jail time he had warned about. Instead, his advisors sought her guidance. How could they open salons sooner? What safety measures did she recommend? Interesting. So I don't know. It seems that as if that in the I don't know. Never mind. It almost seems like the governor, that Texas Governor Greg Abbott, is trying to play both sides, look at things from both sides, being a filthy fence sitter. But anyway. Just over a week later, Abbott had done what Luther wanted, allowing salons to reopen sooner than anticipated, and Luther was in jail. A Democratic judge in Dallas issued the sentence when she repeatedly refused to close her salon. Wait a minute, let's reread that. Just over a week later, Abbott had done what Luther wanted, allowing salons to reopen sooner than anticipated, and Luther was in jail. A Democratic judge in Dallas issued the sentence that she repeatedly refused to close her salon. So what I'm kind of getting is that soon-ish after she had been arrested and thrown in jail, it seemed that that the order had got overall lifted from Texas. So that's at least good on the governor's part for listening to criticism and feedback about the arrest and whatnot. The governor said the judge was in the wrong too, says Red Feather. Okay, if that's cool. She wasn't the first beautician to find herself in legal trouble for violating coronavirus orders. Two Laredo women, Ana Isabel Castro Garcia and Brenda Stephanie Mata, were arrested in mid-April for offering cosmetic services. But unlike in those cases, Luther's arrest prompted widespread, sustained outrage on the ideological right, and Abbott joined a cluster of GOP officials in all three branches of government clamoring for her release. After an emergency request from her prominent Republican attorneys, the Texas Supreme Court ordered it. But while she's out of jail and her salon is free to operate, Luther's spotlight hasn't faded. She's become a cause celebre, how do you pronounce that, on the right and persona non grata on the left. Supporters see a crusader whose protests change minds at the top levels of government. Skeptics see a privileged business owner whose refusal to follow the rules forced a weak governor to change them. And both recognize the emergence of a new quasi-celebrity, appearing on The View and headlining rallies across the state, bolstered by $500,000 in crowd-funded support and a new press team of prominent GOP consultants whose star shows no sign of fading. So much for my summer, says Metal Doomer. That is unfortunate, in fact. Sent 1000 says, the state of emergencies is all I can say. The state law on that is what the governor is allowed. Oh. Okay. Hey, man, if I'm going to die, I want to die with my heels and a dress on, says Myth Cuttlefish. Oh, boy. In March, as the new coronavirus was just starting to cause widespread concern in the U.S., Luther drove with her boyfriend Tim Georgieff from Dallas to Galveston to board a cruise. I have a real good friend who's a doctor, Georgieff told a local news station reporting on virus-related fears. It's really nothing more than a severe cold. I don't know if I would downplay it that much, but it is only marginally worse than the flu, put quite bluntly. Well, I guess it ain't that blunt, what I just said in the later part of my statement there, but all the same. As panic ramped up through the end of the month, Luther was at first willing to tolerate the stay-at-home orders that shuttered businesses across the state. But in April, she changed her mind, insisting she had to reopen out of economic necessity. She began to make the rounds on local media, telling news anchors she would institute safety protocols like face masks, but that she had the right to earn money. Luther would learn later in early May that she had been approved for an $18,000 loan through the federal Paycheck Protection Program. Luther, who was not available for an interview but submitted written statements in response to the Texas Tribune, said she was always more focused on helping her stylist get back to work than on sparking of movement. Well, it's what you inadvertently caused, though, ma'am. She did not really technically start a movement. She just helped a broader movement in her own local area. The broader movement being the anti-lockdown movement, anti-lockdown protests, and the local way that she's doing it is within her locality and state. Ultimately, the reopening of salons, whatnot. China owes me a vacation with my love, or I will have their heads on a pike one day if given the chance, says Metal Doomer. Oh boy. Vacation not to China though, Doomer, says Myth Cuttlefish. I agree with Myth Cuttlefish. There's better places to visit than China. Memes of destruction. Hello there. Hey guys, what's going on? Coronavirus news. That's what's going on. Memes. Red Feather says, in June, most people, especially those that are tip-based, can't just take a few months off work. Yep. Reopening my salon wasn't a political statement. It was a necessity for the people that rely on it, she said. Yeah, she does sound like rather kind of apolitical, but still. Whatever her intentions, Luther quickly made a splash in political circles. Her media appearances drew the attention of Rick Heyer, who, like Luther, was a member of the Open Texas Facebook group that had agitated for a faster, more complete reopening of Texas businesses. Heyer, who runs an IT business near Houston, had once been temporarily suspended from the group and launched a fledgling conservative group called the Woke Patriots. What the fuck? Quote unquote, Woke Patriots. I'm sorry, but I cannot help but cringe because when you use the word woke, it sounds like that you're talking about SJWs or something like, holy crap. Myth Cuttlefish asks, woke patriots? Yeah, that's what they said. Woke patriots. A platform for like-minded people to gather during a period in our nation that has been overshadowed by governmental overreach and rights infringement. Although one can say that the word woke has been kind of butchered. Those two don't mix, says Myth Cuttlefish. I would say pretty much. And someone 1000 asks, what the fuck is a woke patriot? I don't know. I mean, if I was to hear a woke patriot for the very first time, I would think that it's some kind of intersectional feminist that really loves America. Even if a person in the chat might think that that's kind of oxymoronic, but still. But I don't think that's what they mean right here. I think what they mean by woke patriots is an anti-lockdown group, honestly. A woke patriot is a patriotic trans deer person, says Myth Cuttlefish. Yeah. I've been hearing about that deer person on freaking Twitch. I think Magog of Morskar actually did a video on that. I'll have to take a look at it sometime. But anyway, he offered to use the website to support Luther, writing that she was the group's first patriot cause. He launched a crowdfunding page April 23rd. On April 24th, Luther opened her business to a media maelstrom. Cameras and customers waited outside. Online, donations poured in. So did a letter from Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins directing her to shutter the salon immediately. Luther ignored him. In the Open Texas Facebook group, she asked if anyone could help custom print a t-shirt that said "Cease and Desist Jenkins." Remember the Alamode. Remember the Alamode. Instead of Alamo, it's Alamode. Huh. Ha ha ha. Very clever. But anyway, she wrote, retooling the favorite Texas phrase to play on the name of her salon. The case against her advanced with the city of Dallas asking District Judge Eric Moyer to order the salon closed. Moyer, a Democrat elected to his bench in 2008, issued the order April 28. In a Facebook video, Luther said that if she had to go to jail to prove a point that what they're doing is totally unconstitutional, then that's what happens. Well, no disrespect, man, but if you're going to be like dragging the Constitution into it, then that is the moment that it definitely does become political. I mean, even though that people like to think that the U.S. Constitution and Americanism isn't really that much of a political stance, it kind of is. I mean, it's no less of a political issue now than it was a political issue back during the Revolutionary War when people of the American colonies were trying to get their independence. So, anyway. Abbott had warned it could be dangerous to reopen salons, but he also said he wanted to do so as soon as possible. Luther was one of the salon owners his team reached out to that week in an effort to gather information on how they might do so safely. By the end of the week, Luther was on the phone with James Huffins, the head of Abbott's task force on reopening the state. Luther said she and Huffins had some disagreements, but I was happy to see the state open up more businesses earlier than they had intended. They have a state of nearly 30 million people they have to think about, she said. I was glad they got to hear from people struggling to make ends meet in Dallas. Meanwhile, an increasing number of Abbott's fellow Republicans were growing outraged at the Luther case and more broadly impatient with the delay in reopening salons. The group included several members of the Texas House who do not typically go out of their way to disagree with Abbott. Respectfully, enough. You are the only one that can stop this. Enough. State Representative James White, Republican of Hillister, tweeted at Abbott that Wednesday, referring to the Luther case. Montgomery County Judge Mark Keough, if that's how you pronounce that, claiming Abbott's directions had been unclear, said he would allow all businesses to reopen. Attorney General Ken Paxton quickly reiterated that Abbott had ordered salons to stay closed. A directive his office said was neither vague nor unenforceable. So they're like explaining the whole legal battle that happened over her salon while she was arrested or something like that. I'm going to keep on trying to power through this article just quite a bit more before I get caught up in the chat. On May 5th, two Texas House Republicans visited a Houston area barbershop, also open in defiance of emergency orders for illegal haircuts. One of them, Briscoe Kane, who is a member of Luther's legal team, called it an act of civil disobedience. Under pressure, Abbott announced hours later that salons could reopen the following Friday. There we go. Victory for Luther in that case. I am not going to shut the salon. But Luther's staunch supporters had fresh cause for distress. Moyer had sentenced her to 7 days in jail. Before doing so, he gave her an opportunity to apologize, telling her if she pledged not to reopen her salon until emergency orders were lifted, he would consider levying only a fine and allowing her to avoid jail time. Why? She's basically, you're asking her to be spineless on her actions. To be, I don't know. Days before the hearing, Luther had received $18,000 in government loans, a sum that could have helped cover costs during the pandemic. But she would later say she wasn't sure how she was allowed to spend it and felt she couldn't risk closing. I am not going to shut the salon, she told the judge. By the first week of May, Luther had retained two well-connected GOP lawyers, Warren Norrid, a member of the state Republican executive committee who typically focuses on intellectual property disputes, and Kane, one of the state lawmakers who had goaded Abbott about visiting a barbershop. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hypocritical there, Mr. Governor. As the two attorneys, As the two attorneys fought for her release in court, ultimately appealing to the Texas Supreme Court, Republican officials issued an outpouring of support. Paxton wrote an unusual direct appeal to the Dallas judge, claiming Moye had abused his discretion and should immediately order Luther's release. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, for his part, offered to pay Luther's fine and serve 7 days of house arrest in place of her jail sentence. I gotta say, the lieutenant governor sounds like a more outstanding individual than Abbott himself, at least in this case, anyways. And Abbott joined the chorus, albeit more cautiously, saying he joined Paxton in disagreeing with the excessive action by the Dallas judge. All right, so there's the little case that was brought by Miff Cuttlefish a little bit earlier about Abbott disapproving of the judge. Violation of the First, Third, and Fourth Amendment. The judge should The judge should be, I think, is what you meant to say, stripped of his title, says Miff Cuttlefish. Yeah, I would pretty much agree. Sent 1000 says, Alamode, what type of pie does that come with? Apple pie, cherry mousse. Cherry mousse for me with dark chocolate gelato. Red Feather says, if she were black and the judge was white, they'd be claiming racism. I don't know. Maybe some people would be, but they wouldn't really have much of a basis for that except for, the colors that people are. I mean, unless they outright stated something in regards of race. I don't know. Where was I? Among Luther's most fervent supporters, there was already pressure building for Abbott to pardon Luther. Hours after Abbott weighed in on May 6th, he told a radio interviewer it would take longer for a potential pardon to go through the state process than it would for Luther to be able to legally open up. But he left open the possibility of a pardon down the road, quote unquote. As outrage continued to mount that night, Abbott took to Twitter to share a Fox News interview he did on Luther's case and to tease some news. I'll make further announcements about this and related issues in the morning, says Abbott said. The next day, hours before he was due at the White House for an appearance with the president, Abbott retroactively removed the enforcement mechanism from his executive orders, decreeing that confinement was no longer a possible penalty for violating one of them. If correctly applied, wrote Abbott, the state's former attorney general, his revision should free Luther. By itself, multiple attorneys said the order would not have served to free Luther, who had been jailed for contempt of court, not criminal violation of Abbott's order. Within hours, the point was moot. The all-Republican Texas Supreme Court ordered Luther's immediate release. At the White House, Trump seemed well aware of Luther's case, bringing it up as Abbott, who was there to discuss Texas's coronavirus response, said no one should go to jail for violating his orders. All right. She's free today, Abbott said. Good, Trump replied, later adding, I was watching the salon owner and she looked so great, so professional, so good, and she was talking about her children. She has to feed her children. Well, I say that this is good on Trump right here. This is good rhetoric. I do not know of how much in good faith this is coming from Trump, but at least on the surface, it seems that Trump is, doing good action, saying good words in this part right here, helping a good cause in a rather small way. He still initiated those crappy executive actions, but all the same, I'll give Trump some brownie points on this. At the same meeting, a reporter asked Deborah Birx, the White House coronavirus response coordinator, if she thought Texas's reopening plan was great, the praise that Abbott has repeatedly attributed to her. She said she and Abbott had a long discussion on the topic, particularly about holding off on reopening nail salons. So we talked about, not having them in the first opening wave because you can't really physically distance, she said. And we had that discussion, and he agreed, and we've moved forward together. Excuse me, folks. Myth Cuttlefish says, prayers for my pinky. I just took a chunk off trying at cutting some polymer clay. Rest in peace, pinky, 1990 to 2020. A moment of silence for Myth Cuttlefish's pinky. All right, that's silence enough. But no, in all seriousness, Myth Cuttlefish, sorry that you cut your pinky right there. You didn't cut it completely off, did you, Myth Cuttlefish? I don't know. What was I going to say? So we talked about, where was I? I can't remember where I was at exactly. Oh, I read that. No, says Myth Cuttlefish. No, she did not. It's a gnarly chunk. Ouch. Hope you didn't. Never mind. I'm not going to say that. By the way, how many of y'all watched my most recent edited video that I had uploaded? That one shit post that kind of takes the piss out of S-Man. If you haven't seen it yet, you ought to. It's kind of funny. Moments later, Birx declined to say whether Texas is a role model for other states. Every state is different, she said in response to a reporter's question, so I don't want to get in comparison with the governors because I've talked to some incredible governors who are all doing quite a good job. They're afraid, and they should be. The incident has left harsh blowback for those in Luther's wake. Chief among them, Moye. He was elected to his current bench, the 14th Judicial District Court in 2008, and won re-election by 18 percentage points when he was last up for re-election in 2016. Dang, that's a long term as a judge right there. Luther's supporters are now rallying around the Republican challenging Moye this November. Dallas Attorney Jessica Voice Lewis, a highly unusual level of attention for a down-ballot judicial race in reliably blue Dallas. Patrick promoted her candidacy. Let me reread that. Excuse me. Patrick promoted her candidacy during an appearance last week on Fox News, saying Moye may find out the real reckoning will come in November. Days later, Trump retweeted a Fox News commentator who said Moye should be voted out of office November 3rd. Wow. Trump coming down hard on a small-scale judge. Yeah. I'll check it out, Darkon. I rarely get notifications. That's sad. Well, then click the bell notification button and select all, word further. No. But yeah, is the bell rang? If not, hit the shit out of it, says Sent11000. Yeah, like Sent11000 said. If y'all are like having trouble with notifications, you know what to do. As all other YouTube channels are saying, hit the bell notification button and click on all. Redfeather says, I have it set to all. YouTube hates me. Damn! What the fuck is going on there? I mean, if you're rarely getting notifications from my YouTube channel, yet despite having notifications set to all, what am I doing wrong? Or what is YouTube doing wrong? Holy crap. Sent11000, the one where S-Man can't decide which MILF to pick. Yeah, that one, Sent11000. Yeah. Yeah, hope you guys liked it. You'd think being subscribed to a channel would be enough to notify you of an upload. Well, an occasional upload at least. I mean, I can understand not being notified of every single upload from a channel that you're subscribed to if you like just merely click subscribe. But if they're like giving absolutely no notifications, that's kind of ridiculous. And it's even more ridiculous if they're not sending any notifications at all when you hit the all selection on that bell notification button. I mean, if that button was to be accurate and YouTube was to be in good faith with their system, they would literally be allowing or fixing, anyways, that system so that literally people are notified of all uploads and live streams once you select the all button on the notification button. It's just utter bull. But anyway, that's my little mini rant about YouTube system. So I'm going to I'm going to continue on. But YouTube is like fuck you to everyone. So sent 1,000. Sadly enough. Anyways, nothing about what he did in the courtroom surprises me at all. Moyet's political consultant Jeff Dalton said in an interview, he's not politically naive at all, but he's incredibly apolitical when it comes to the decisions he makes in the courtroom. That's kind of odd for a politician to try and be apolitical, to try and be non-political. But anyway, since the controversy flared up, Dalton said Moyet's campaign email has been receiving messages full of racist terminology as well as 2 lynching threats. Okay, the lynching threats, I condemn those. Shame. Full of racist terminology. I'm just going to condemn that right now. Critics have circulated Moyet's home address online, and there have been protests there while he has been away that police have monitored. I mean, since I haven't so far seen what exactly the supposed racist terminology is, for right now, I condemn it anyways. But then again, knowing of how loose people are with their accusations of racism, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those accusations of racism were kind of baseless. Anyway. Exactly. I was going to say define racist terminology, says Red Feather. Exactly. And even if they were being kind of racist, this doesn't dwindle. This should have no bearing on the cause of reopening businesses and, letting, dang it, what's her name? Or of letting the salon owner go. Luther, that's what her name is. Dang it. I cannot believe that I forgot her name for a second there. This was a very effective publicity stunt by the Tea Party and the far right, says Dalton. Oh, get screwed. Meanwhile, now out of jail, Luther is already leveraging her new celebrity status, aided by 2 Republican consultants. After paying for her own legal bills and the mortgage on her salon, Luther turned her crowdfunded money into a new foundation, Courage to Stand, which she said will support hairstylists, and other small businesses closed by government orders and crushed by the economic fallout. Yep. And y'all know how I've published a little mini vlog about talking about small business owners and how we have to support them. I say that now more than ever, support your local and small business. Think of Lex Luthor from Superman, says sent 1,000. Yeah. Well, I was thinking Martin Luther or Martin Luther King Jr. More precisely, but I guess that works too. Anyway, even as some critics accuse Luther of political opportunism, how could you accuse her of political opportunism? As it said in this article, she was rather apolitical originally before reopening the salon, and even during beginning portion of her trying to reopen her salon, she wasn't thinking about the politics of this situation. Now those critics right there, I'm just saying, are being rather are being just partisan hacks, honestly. Owners of still shuttered businesses are considering whether to follow her example. Texans need to be treated as adults, she said. Yeah, everybody in the country needs to be treated as adults. She defended her decision to reopen in an appearance on The View on Monday. And on Wednesday, she headlined a Laredo freedom rally in the border city, where she stood alongside Castro Garcia and Mata. I never expected to be in this situation, Mata said through tears. Luther came on stage in heeled boots and a black face mask and hugged the younger woman. We were literally treated like criminals. I know I wasn't doing anything wrong. Don't ever apologize for working. Don't ever apologize, Luther cried. Then she took off her mask to great applause. Wait, I guess it ain't Luther. I guess the name of the salon owner is Mata. I don't know. Dang it, I'm forgetting the names here. I can't remember if it's Luther or if it's Mata is her name. After Shelley Luther was jailed for opening her salon. Okay, yeah, it's Shelley Luther is the name of the person opening the salon. I just found it kind of funny that Luther wasn't the one crying. I never expected to be in this situation, Mata said through tears. Luther came on stage in heeled boots and a black face mask and hugged the younger woman. We were literally treated like criminals. I know I wasn't doing anything wrong. Don't ever apologize for work and don't ever apologize, Luther cried. Okay, that's what kind of threw me off there. Oh my gosh, The View, they'll probably shit all over her, says Red Feather. Yeah, sadly enough. In my opinion, everyone should take their freedom back. Yep. Is it too early to call Miss Luther the king of the resistance or queen of the resistance? I mean, sorry, not sorry for the terrible. Oh, sorry, not sorry for the terrible pun, says JC Armitage. Okay, never mind. JC was referring specifically to MLK. Darkon, did you nap today? You might need a nap, says Myth Cuttlefish. No, thanks for the concern of my health, but I'm fine right now. Thanks for the concern, though. What was I going to say? And she took off her mask to great applause. Wow. I mean, I wouldn't typically look at something as I typically wouldn't look at something with such high praise, but the symbolism of that just makes me kind of feel all kind of warm inside, just a little bit. Feel positive inside, just a little. I just want to say that this obviously got a lot bigger than I thought, Luther said. This gained national attention not because I wanted it to, but I think it was supposed to, and I just followed my heart. A lot of people are like, and this is going to sound bad, now this white lady has all this money. Is she going to contribute to these Hispanic families? Luther pledged to kick off crowdfunding pages for the two women with a total of $2,500 from her own roughly $500,000 in donations. Okay, I'm going to say that last quote right there about the Hispanic families, that just seemed kind of out of the blue and rather unnecessary. And it honestly sounded like a bit of a gaffe on Luther's part. Sorry. It's not about that, she insisted. I don't care what color you are. We're coming together right now, stronger and more fierce than they will ever be able to handle. And they're afraid, and they should be. Okay. I don't know exactly who she means by afraid, that the politicians should be afraid of our efforts, or that the people should be afraid of the government trying to be, overly tyrannical on them. But I don't know. Either way, I guess either way is kind of true. I'm going to say right here that I guess it wasn't a gaffe. So, no, well, actually, it seemed kind of unnecessary because I did not see the racial element really throughout this article or throughout this story in general. We Hispanics can take care of ourselves. Stop it, white peepo, says Myth Cuttlefish. Myth Cuttlefish, are you actually Hispanic? Out of curiosity? If so, I didn't know that. If she had millions, wouldn't she just pay them, says Red Feather? See, they always have to bring race into it. Myth Cuttlefish says, oh, okay. Well, that's cool, Myth Cuttlefish. You know, a little fun fact, folks. I have like plenty of Hispanics that watch the program rather regularly. Not a whole lot of black people though, honestly. But yeah, it's just little fun fact about the demographics I've been noticing about my channel. Plenty of Hispanics, but not a whole lot of black people, at least no regulars anyway that go, as far as regulars go, watching the channel anyways. So going on to the next article though. This from Business Insider, and Business Insider, they can sometimes come off as left leaning or right leaning in their articles, either way, kind of in the same way as Forbes. But Business Insider, I typically see as Business Insider, I typically see as fairly credible. Zach doesn't get any black females, says Metal Doomer. Sadly, yes. Only freedom-loving Hispanics, probably, says Myth Cuttlefish. Yep, exactly. I only get primarily libertarian Hispanics watching the program. I don't think I know that I have some leftists that on occasion watch my show who are white, but not a whole lot of minority leftists. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. Do any Asian waifus watch the channel? LOL, says JC Armitage. I don't know about that. I know some people have Asian profile pictures, though. Or have some anime profile pictures for their profiles anyway. IMF says Great Lockdown, global recession will be worst economic meltdown since the Great Depression. So I think this will be the last article of the day since we are fast approaching on the 1 hour mark of this program. But let's get on with this article. It should be fairly quick. I mean, Business Insider, I think, is typically quicker with their articles. Yeah, it's a lot quicker than the last article. So we'll get on with this, and as soon as we're done with this, we'll save these other 3 articles here, here, and here for next week's, or not next week's, but this upcoming weekend show. The Great Lockdown. Well, actually, let's read the bullet points of this article first. Bullet point 1, the coronavirus outbreak will drive a great lockdown poised to be the worst recession in nearly a century, the International Monetary Fund projected on Tuesday. Okay, how old is this article? April 14, 2020. So this was like already in the middle of the lockdown. So it's not will drive a great lockdown. It has driven a great lockdown. But I digress. The bullet point number 2, the agency's base case is that global gross domestic product will shrink by 3% in 2020 before recovering to 5.8% growth in 2021. Yeah, we're probably going to be in at least a 1 to 2 year recession, I predict, folks. I mean, I'm not exactly the biggest pessimist, so don't quote me on that, and I don't necessarily believe that, but anyway. I'm not sure of how much I'm convinced by that. I mean, I don't rule it out that some kind of economic meltdown is going to happen, but still. Bullet point number 3, a pandemic lasting through 2020 would eliminate most of the following year's rebound, the IMF said, while a COVID-19 resurgence would push 2021 GDP 8% below its baseline forecast. Bullet point number 4, no country is safe from the pandemic until a vaccine is developed, making collaboration necessary to avoid an even worse economic collapse, the IMF said in its Tuesday report. Visit Business Insider's homepage for more stories. The Great Lockdown, fueled by the coronavirus pandemic, will be the worst recession since the Great Depression and stands to worsen if the outbreak can't be contained. The International Monetary Fund projected on Tuesday. In the IMF's base case, global gross domestic product will slide by 3% this year, assuming the pandemic threat fades in the second half of the year. Successful containment measures and strong policy support would then drive a 5.8% GDP bounce in 2021, the fund said in its latest World Economic Outlook report. I also want to say, like, in regards of that first paragraph, you're also going to end up having worse economic output. You're gonna be like hurting the economy if you keep the economy, if you keep the businesses locked down as well. So I don't know. It almost seems like a damned if we do, damned if we don't type of situation on either front. The forecast trounces the 0.1% GDP contraction seen in 2009 during the peak of the financial crisis. U.S. GDP is expected to shrink by 5.9% in 2020 before rebounding to 4.7% growth the following year, the IMF estimated, adding that the Eurozone would suffer a 7.5% decline before posting a similarly sized recovery in 2021. This crisis is like no other. Geeta Gopinath, the IMF's Economic Council, wrote in the report's foreword, adding, like in a war or a political crisis, there is continued severe uncertainty about the duration and intensity of the shock. Even in the IMF's dire base case, risks to economic growth are skewed to the downside. The agency laid out 3 scenarios should the world's fight against COVID-19, the illness caused by the coronavirus, fall short. A pandemic lasting through 2020 would see the global economy contract another 3% beyond the baseline estimate, according to the IMF. A second outbreak in 2021 would push GDP nearly 5% below the fund's base scenario next year, effectively canceling its projection of a swift economic rebound. In the worst of the IMF's 3 scenarios, a longer outbreak in 2020 and a resurgence the following year would drag global output about 8% below its 2021 base case. Such a prolonged crisis would yield 2 years of sharp global GDP contraction and would likely be even worse as public debt skyrockets and leaves additional scarring, the fund said. Uncertainty, I'm so scared, Mifkal Fish says with an eye roll. Okay. We'd rather people die of starvation, not coronavirus, says Red Feather. I think Red Feather was being sarcastic there, but I'm not certain. If you want to clarify on that, Red Feather, on that statement, well, then go ahead and do so. We'd rather people die of starvation, not coronavirus. I think that, or mocking the the people that are saying keep the lockdown going. Many countries face a multi-layered crisis comprising a health shock, domestic economic disruptions, plummeting external demand, capital flow reversals, and a collapse in commodity prices. The IMF said in its report, risks of a worse outcome predominate. The report is the IMF's first since the coronavirus spread globally and shut down major economies. The agency's previous forecast saw global GDP growing by 3.3% in 2020, a stark reminder of what economists expected before the coronavirus outbreak tanked economies in a matter of weeks. Collaboration among nations is key in protecting against the outbreak and avoiding a worse economic downturn, the IMF said. Relief measures from governments and monetary authorities are necessary to pad against economic collapse and will create vital support for when economies come back online. Nations must also cooperate in fighting the virus's spread until a treatment or vaccine arrives. The World Health Organization, that depends. I mean, are you talking about lockdowns that are going to just keep people from producing and just make us an almost all consume and almost no producing type of economy? Are you talking about like contracting people's wages with the lockdowns and whatnot? If that's what you mean by nations must also cooperate and find the virus spread, well then screw that. But if you're meaning something like the businesses within nations, they must like set some sort of safety parameters within their private property to kind of alleviate the spread. Well, then, yeah, that's fine. I agree with that. Yes, I was being sarcastic. LOL, if people don't work, they don't eat, says Red Feather. Indeed. The World Health Organization announced on Monday that there were 70 coronavirus vaccine candidates under evaluation, with 3 leading candidates already in human trials. A preventative drug is the most effective way to end the COVID-19 crisis, but such vaccines are likely months away and can't be depended on too quickly. But such vaccines are likely months away and can't be depended on to quickly save ailing economies, the IMF said. Until such medical interventions become available, no country is safe from the pandemic, including a recurrence after the initial wave subsidies subsides, as long as transmission occurs elsewhere, the organization added. Dude, says Loudmouth. Oh, I'm so sorry, Loudmouth.
Dude, you're missing the dog whistles in this article, man. This article is pure unadulterated communist propaganda. Did you notice that? You notice that the IMF saying we need more international cooperation for a vaccine. Want to know what that's a dog whistle for? That we shouldn't hold the Communist Party accountable for this virus. That's trying to tell nations to avoid holding the Communist Party accountable. I'm telling you.
I think this might be a little bit before the drama between China and Australia as far as searching for a vaccine.
Dude, trust me, the Communist Party has been trying to put out this narrative for months now, okay? And because they know the world's furious at them and they're trying to cover their ass. And they have their agents in all international institutions. It's not just the World Health Organization. The IMF, World Trade Organization, all these international bodies have all been infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party.
Honestly, I did not see that much of an implication, and
I'm telling you, Dave.
If the IMF really is in bed explicitly with China,
it's not explicitly.
I did not see the reference to that in this article or anything.
It's a dog whistle. The whole international cooperation thing. Oh, we need to just focus on international cooperation. That's what the Chinese Communist Party wants to put out.
Well, it depends on what kind of international cooperation they're talking about. If they're talking about international cooperation, like, let's get in bed with China or whatever, well then, yeah, that's pretty bad. And that's the kind of international cooperation that I obviously don't want. But
like here. Preach, Loudmouth. He's right. Hello. See, yeah, people know, man. The people are aware. That's a dog whistle, dude. In that article, okay, that's what they mean, because it's basically a code word for leave China alone. Don't try to put any effort into holding the Chinese Communist Party accountable for unleashing the virus upon the world.
I think that might be just reading a little bit too much into this specific article right here. I mean, if it was talking about the World Health Organization specifically, I'd see more of the implication, because there's more. I have seen more of the evidence that the WHO is like in bed with China, but I did not know that about the IMF. I mean,
you'd be very hard pressed to find any international institutions that are not in bed with the Chinese Communist Party, dude. They have their roots everywhere. In numerous corporations, institutions, educational bodies. Their influence is widespread. Most people really have no clue just how much of their day-to-day lives are influenced by them.
No, it's not, Darkon. No, it's not on what, Metal Doomer? What do you mean by that? No, it's not on what? China owns Harvard, says Myth.
They do, yes. They've actually arrested a Harvard professor just very recently because they found some professor there had ties to the Chinese Communist Party. They have a lot of spies there that will often steal research and send it to China.
Now, I kind of want to add a little bit more to my point as far as like international, quote unquote, international cooperation goes. If international cooperation means go along with China's narrative, but like I mean, let's put it this way: the word international. I mean, you would agree that there should be international cooperation to fight China, right?
Absolutely, and I would. So, and I don't really disagree.
International cooperation isn't explicitly a pro-China term.
Hold on. Well, I'm not. In and of itself, that term is not in any way malevolent. I agree with international cooperation, but I'm telling you, when it comes from these international bodies, that's what they mean. They mean to not hold China accountable, because they know if nations are getting on each other's case, who do you think people would be most mad at nowadays? It would be China, because it was the origin of the virus, and people are angry at the Chinese Communist Party.
Do you have like an article of the IMF specifically taking like a pro-China stance or something like that?
No, not specifically, but I'm sure these international bodies, from the WHO's basically pro-China stance, it only really came out recently. Like, it's only really become explicit because of recent events. But it's not just the World Health Organization that China's been corrupting over the past couple decades. China's been corrupting international institutions all around the globe.
Well, I would not rule that out.
Always be very suspicious of any kind of international body.
I wouldn't rule it out necessarily, but I don't know. I guess I'm just waiting for the evidence on a case-by-case basis, like World Health Organization explicitly ignoring Taiwan and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, that just made it like they didn't like that because that made it too obvious. They've been doing shit like that for years. It's just been very subtle and beneath behind the scenes. Whereas that interview, when it went viral, basically exposed them publicly. It made their massive pro-Communist Party bias really, really easy to see. They didn't like that.
Saying I'm talking about you disagreeing with Loudmouth. It's obvious what I was talking about, dude. Not really. I do not know what specific facet of me kind of sparring with Loudmouth here you're disagreeing with me on. I'm sorry. I'm kind of at a loss of what you're
not disagreeing with you, dude. I'm trying to say I saw that as a dog whistle in the article you read.
Okay, but as far as like I don't know. I guess I'll have to look up a different article that goes talking about a recession and whatnot. But you would
that is talking points that have come from the Chinese Communist Party. They're talking about we need to foster more international cooperation, and what they mean by that is leave us alone. Don't try to hold us accountable for the shit we did.
But regarding the main the main narrative of the article, the main issue being tackled by Business Insider right here, you would agree overall that we are about to like hit some kind of major economic downturn, like recession or depression or something.
We're already past that. I mean, the question is, will it be a Great Depression that rivals the one from the 30s, or will it be something quicker that we can recover from after they have a vaccine or what have you? That's the question. But will it be a major recession, the biggest in our lifetimes? Oh, hell yeah, absolutely. That's already done.
You would comfortably say bigger than the 2008 housing crisis?
Oh, hell yeah, way bigger. It's already way bigger than that, and it probably could get worse before it gets better.
All right. I don't know. I guess the article was disappointing in a way that it did not. I mean, aside from like GDP growth, which kind of established in a far past article talking about when I was like responding to Andrew Yang, GDP growth and GDP in general is not that good of a metric to go off by in regards of how good an economy is doing. But
very hard to really
I wish that the article like brought some more metrics, I guess.
It's really hard to measure recent circumstances because they're so new and unprecedented. We don't really have much in the past to really compare them to, is the problem.
But I will say at least that the Telegraph article right here talking about UNICEF warns lockdown could kill more than COVID-19 as model predicts 1.2 million child deaths. Like the economy being put to a slowdown to where that people cannot as easily feed their kids and whatnot.
Oh, I could totally believe that. It's possible that the cure could be worse than the disease. That's why we really do need to find a balance. And it really pisses me off when you talk about trying to find a balance and people screech to you, you want grandma to die or some stupid shit like that, or accuse you of being a sociopath who doesn't care if people get sick, which is not the case at all. But you do need to balance things out because economic damage can kill as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm still trying to find my balance, but I still like to err on the side like generally against the lockdown and for liberty. Speaking of which, did you like see my response video to Foamy the Squirrel?
No, I'm sorry. I should.
Well, it's
I'll try to watch it after. I've been working a lot the last few days.
like it's a little under 15 minutes, and it's a fairly entertaining video. I think it'd be quick and easy enough to get through.
Was it night shift 1,000? Really, you just want people to know. Well, I mean, yeah, measures do need to be taken to halt the spread of this disease and slow the spread and flatten the curve. Yes, but they do need to be taken in balance. All right, you can't just shut down the whole economy and indefinitely until all disease goes away. I'm sorry, disease is always going to be a part of our lives. That's just how it is, and you need to balance things out with economic considerations.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm
no
sorry,
one has ever died before COVID-19. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yes, this virus is certainly not just the flu, bro. It certainly is very deadly, and it's highly contagious.
I am going to say, like, sorry, you kind of caught me like at the tail end of this episode of Strike Force. I wasn't planning on going much further than an hour because I was getting distracted with stuff over Discord, getting off of work. So I got home kind of late. I wanted to get home sooner so I could power through more of these articles that I have lined up, but there's other things I have to do.
Have you been following the shit going on in Hong Kong? It's really fucking disgusting.
Not particularly. If you have an article I mean, loudmouth, if you have like any articles at all that news related, by all means, share them in one of the Strike Force News group chats, be it the Discord or the Twitter group chat.
I can find an article maybe, but was it to sum it up? They put a lockdown that would establish past June 4th in Hong Kong because there was a planned rally on June 4th against the Communist Party, and they basically are using the virus now as kind of an excuse to shut down these rallies. But it's very clearly politically motivated. They clearly just don't like the people of Hong Kong commemorating the Tiananmen Square massacre.
I mean, their second wave hasn't gone like to full speed yet, even, has it?
No, they've actually done remarkably well in Hong Kong. With one, they cut off the border to mainland China really quickly early in the plague, and another thing that helps is the weather down there. Hong Kong is pretty far to the south of China, whereas the northern regions where it's much colder, it was easier for the virus to spread.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah,
unfortunately, Taiwan also has a whole bunch of pro CCP members in it.
Well, the thing about the Hong Kong electoral system is it's rigged in favor of the CCP. Pro-democracy candidates, anti-CCP candidates win the popular vote overwhelmingly in Hong Kong every year, but many seats in Hong Kong's parliament are given to various business interests, and that will install pro-CCP candidates in there. So even though the overwhelming majority of the popular vote goes against the CCP, it's still rigged in the Communist Party's favor. That's why people of Hong Kong have been protesting so strongly. There was a mall last week. There was like a big protest in a mall. I think that the police broke up there. They were carrying a bunch of posters with the Chinese flag, but the 3 stars modified into a swastika. Calls for a revolution. I love those people.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
What was I going to say? Okay, so as far as like International Monetary Fund being cited by Business Insider, I guess I don't know. It's kind of dismissible, but I'll like try to look up another article talking about economic downturn and the extent of it, and pre-read it and just talk about it on a future episode of
Strike. And it talked about vaccines as well. Another thing worth noting that the Communist Party is doing is they're trying to steal research for a vaccine because they're in a race to develop one themselves, so that if they develop it first, they can hold the rest of the world hostage. They can maybe demand things from the rest of the world to not investigate us or put tariffs on us, to leave us alone in exchange for the vaccine.
Oh boy.
That's another thing that they've been trying to do.
You know what? PSA Sitch. I've been like listening to the rest of that one live stream that I shared to you yesterday or the day before.
Oh, the one where Adam makes an ass of himself. That was funny.
Yeah, Adam. Like I did not have much of an opinion about him, but then he was like explicitly not listening to Greg and just acting like he was talking about all Skepcom members have turned into neoconservatives or whatever.
Yeah, that
exactly
was absolutely obnoxious what he did. He deliberately misinterpreted Greg in completely bad faith. Absolutely disgraceful. I mean,
Yeah.
Maybe he was just being dumb. He didn't listen to it, and he just wanted to hear the worst things that he possibly could. I don't know.
I think in the case of no bullshit that it was completely bad faith. He was just wanting to milk off of the sub cow of his sub cow, that being the bullshitting cow himself.
Yeah. It's on to suck his subscriber teats of the cow.
Yeah.
And that was so funny the way Brooks constantly was stepping in it, and Adam was trying his hardest to save Brooks from himself, but it was impossible because Brooks was so fucking stupid. He kept stepping in.
Like I was saying about that episode of the PSA Sitch on Daily Show, there was a later point of that somebody like sent a super chat to PSA Sitch. He read it, and it was talking about how Trump was supposedly trying to buy the vaccine, buy all the research and whatnot. Like he doubted that it's true, and with the way that he was acting and whatnot, I kind of doubt of it being true as well. But it's just a funny thing in relation to what you said there. I mean, if it is true, you got China trying to buy the vaccine, and you got Trump trying to buy the vaccine. To compete.
I don't think China will succeed at that, though. Developing a vaccine before us and holding the world hostage for it. I don't think they'll succeed at that, but from what I hear, they are trying.
Right. Not me. I was vexed for scarlet fever, and I almost died because of it, says Myth Cuttlefish. Oh, boy. Huh. Got a bit of an allergy there, Myth Cuttlefish? Sorry to hear that.
Let's see. Speaking of vaccines, have you heard of ID 2020? If so, do you think the CCP is funding it? I'm not familiar with that specific ID, so no opinion until I've done more reading on it.
I have heard about ID 2020, and there's like all these conspiracy theories going on around of how ID 2020, it's basically some kind of tracking chip that gets embedded into your wrist, and people are like theorizing of how it's the mark of the beast and Revelations is here.
Well, I don't believe any of that shit, but I do.
Well, I know that you're an agnostic, but still.
Well, I certainly do believe the CCP would take advantage of modern technology to further track and control its citizens, and even people across the globe.
Problem with the narrative, though, about that supposedly being the mark of the beast is that, and this is something that Zachary Colley had to remind me on Discord, by the way, that the mark of the beast is not just used to track citizens. Its primary function is to conduct and trade, to conduct a business within the economy, and as a sign of sort of submission to whatever overlord is ruling over society and whatnot. So, and I don't think that's the function of the ID 2020. I mean, it's still a 1984 George Orwellian.
I mean, it is entirely possible.
Still.
I mean, it is entirely possible that Xi Jinping's mother was a jackal. I don't know if anyone got that movie reference.
I thought it would have been like a bear.
You never saw The Omen?
Winnie the Pooh bear.
Oh yeah. But
that kind of fell flat.
The Omen, you know how Damien's mother was a jackal, the Antichrist.
Wait,
in
what
that movie,
was that from?
The Omen from 1976 is a horror classic.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh God, that's a fantastic horror movie.
Sorry to disappoint.
Horror movies ever made.
The only like really good, like objectively praised horror movies that I have seen is The Exorcist and Alien and Aliens. The entire Alien quadrilogy, actually.
Yeah, it's every bit stands among them, dude. It's about this guy who's raising a kid he finds out is the Antichrist of the Bible, like he's raising the devil's son. there's a lot of great horrifying scenes. I like this one scene like where they visit the zoo and all the animals can just kind of sense the kid's evil and they all violently react to him. They all used real animals in the scene. It was it was a very chilling moment. And it always made me kind of afraid of Rottweilers after some of the scenes it did with Rottweilers. And I'm sure Rottweilers are fine dogs. I'm right. I'm not bashing anyone's Rottweiler, but that movie's use of them was just bone-chillingly creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of Killer Clowns from Mars? I think you're referring to Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And that's less a horror movie and more just kind of a horror comedy.
Oh my gosh. One of my friends within my friend circle keeps on making references to that movie and yeah, says that it's kind of a guilty pleasure. It's so bad that it's good B movie.
Oh, yeah, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is actually pretty funny. Well,
I couldn't get through it.
There's like the dean from Animal House as a cop in that. What was the guy? I forgot that actor's name, but he gives like a really hilarious performance. Are you saying the killer clowns? Like he acts like a real guy in the real world would if you're hearing this ridiculous concept. Like I don't have time for this stupid shit. It's almost like he's breaking the fourth wall. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. So I think if you want to talk any further off air, Loudmouth, we can do that. But for right now, I am going to end this stream because, like I said, I wasn't want to be too long, especially with how late that I had got home and whatnot. But anyway, to everybody in the chat, thanks a lot for contributing to the show, and thanks a lot, Loudmouth, for coming on, if not ever so briefly. Sorry about that.
That's cool.
But anyway, I'll probably do another news stream either Saturday or Sunday or Monday afternoon.
Love everyone out there. Take care.
Yep. Have a good night. God bless and happy Memorial Day weekend. Peace.
Yep.